Welcome to this video. This is an advanced equation solving technique called clearing fractions and decimals. So in the past, what you've been able to do is just use your fraction calculator to move fractions around, multiply or divide by fractions. But if you don't have a calculator, this is a handy technique that will allow you to eliminate fractions and decimals from your equations and allow you to solve them pretty easily, transform them into easier equations to solve. So let's take a look at the first one. 5 halves x minus 1/3 equals 13. The first step for clearing fractions is to look at your fractions and find the lowest common denominator of your fractions. So here we have 2 and 3 in the denominator, which would give us the least common denominator of 6. Then what you'll do is you'll multiply through the entire equation by 6. That means you'll multiply every term by 6. Okay? And now I can do some cross-canceling. This would be the same as 3. This would be the same as 2. So what I'm going to end up with is a simpler equation now that looks like this. 3 times 5, that's 15x, minus 2 times 1 is 2, equals 60 plus 18, that would be 78. Okay? Now this is just a regular two-step equation. We'll add 2 to both sides. We'll get 15x equals 80. We'll divide both sides by 15. And we'll get x equals 80/15. Okay, and I can reduce that by a factor of 5. So 5 goes into 18 16 times, and 5 goes into 15 3 times. So what I've got here is x equals 16/3, and there's no need to use a calculator for any of that. Okay. The nice thing about clearing the fractions is we can use it for decimals as well. Decimals are just fractions. You'll recall 0.3 is the same as 3/10. Likewise, 0.2 is the same as 2/10 or 1/5. Okay? So what we'll do for number 2 is really like what we did for number 1. We multiplied through by the least common denominator in number 1. We'll do the same thing for number 2. What I see here are tenths and tenths. I'm going to multiply through by 10. 10 times 0.3x minus 10 times 0.2 equals 10 times 1. So what I have here is 0.3 times 10 is 3x. 0.2 times 10 is 2. And 10 times 1 is 10. Again, we've just transformed this into a very simple two-step equation. 3x equals 12, divide by 3, and we'll get x equals 4. Okay? Again, no need to use a calculator at all. Let's take a look at number 3. These numbers are a little larger, but they're not any more difficult. All right? We want to first find the least common denominator for equation number 3. I see a 200, a 50, and a 100. I'm recognizing that all of those numbers go into 200, so that's going to be my LCD. So what I'll do is I'll multiply each term by 200. Oops. 200 times x over 50 equals 200 times 7 over 100. 7/100. And now I can do some cross-canceling. 200 and 200 will cancel each other out. 200 over 50 would be times 4. And 200 over 100 is the same as 2. So what I now have is the equation 3 plus 4x equals 14. Okay? Again, transformed into a lovely two-step equation. Subtract 3 from both sides, and that'll give us 4x equals 11. Divide by 4, and that will give us x equals 11/4. That cannot be reduced, so I'm going to stop there. Okay? This gives you some indication of how this technique works. Again, we look at the fractions or the decimals and decide on the LCD, or the factor that we're going to multiply by. We multiply every term by it, and then we solve the resulting simplified equation. Again, none of this requires a calculator. This is a bit of advice I want to give you, however. If you see parentheses, as in number 4 here, be sure to distribute before you clear the fractions or decimals. Okay, let's just look. If we don't clear the fractions or decimals, and if we don't distribute first, let's look at number 4. I see 1/3, 1/3, and 1/2. To me, that looks like I could multiply through by a 6. I'm not going to do it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute and see if 6 is really the LCD I want. So first I'm going to multiply through here, distribute the 1/3, and I'll get 1/9 x minus 1/3 times 12, that's 4, equals 1/2 x plus 6. Okay? Now that I've distributed, I see that that 6 for the LCD will no longer work. This is why it is important to distribute before you clear the fractions or decimals. Because now I'm going to want an LCD of 18. That would be a number that 9 and 2 both go into. So what I'm going to do is multiply each term by 18. 18 times 4 equals 18 times 1/2 x plus 18 times 6. Okay? 18 over 9 is 2. Okay, I can reduce a fraction of 18 and 2. That would give me 9. Okay, now I'm going to multiply this out. 2 times 1x is 2x. 40 plus 32 is 72. Okay. 9 times 1x is 9x. And I'm going to multiply 18 times 6, that's 60 plus 48, that would be 108. Okay? This is now a slightly more complicated equation. It's not a two-stepper, but it's a multi-step equation. We see that we have variables on both sides, so we will subtract 2x from each side in order to get all the x's together. So I'll get negative 72 equals 7x plus 108. Okay. I'll now subtract the 108 because this is now a two-step equation. And I'll get negative 180 equals 7x. Last thing I'm going to do is divide. I'll divide by 7 and I'll get x equals negative 180 over 7. That cannot be reduced because 7 doesn't go into 180 and there are no common factors there. So I am done. All right? I hope this has been helpful. This is a really terrific technique. It's more efficient than going through and dealing with all the fractions, and it doesn't require you to use a calculator. So I hope you found this helpful, and please do remember to distribute before using this technique.